This is easily one of my favorite gaming mice released this year, but there is one issue with it that's holding it back from becoming my daily driver, and it might be relevant to you too. This is the Pulsar X2H, and in my opinion, it's the closest alternative to the XM2WE that we have right now. Frankly, I was not impressed with the XM2WE when it first came out. So what if you like that style of shape a lot, like me, but you didn't have something that was a modern option to choose from? The X2H seems to be the answer. Whereas the Pulsar X2 was definitely closer to something like the MZ1 wireless, this X2H is definitely closer to the XM2. Now that's not to say that it's a clone, it's its own unique shape based on the original Pulsar X2, but it does have similar philosophies and design principles that makes it so that it's very compatible if you are coming from a XM1 or XM2. Compared to the original X2, it has a taller hump that's moved further back. It also has widened, flared out hips, and because of this tweak, the pinch point of the mouse, that is to say this part, is a lot wider as well. The clicks are also more steeply angled, even though they're still pretty low profile, but you still conserve the same deep click grooves and grooves on the sides for your fingers that the Pulsar X2 has. All in all, you end up with a shape that's really excellent for a variety of grips, though it's clearly designed for claw grip first and foremost. I would say that the sweet spot hand size for a mouse of this size, the X2H size 2 medium, is probably about 18 to 21 centimeters long. I think my hand size of 19.5 centimeter long is actually the perfect sweet spot for this mouse, which is probably why I like it all that much. I can claw grip this, I can relax claw grip this, I can fingertip grip this, I can palm grip this, and it still all works and feels pretty comfortable, which is why, honestly, it is my favorite shape of the year so far. So if your hands are within that 18 to 21 centimeter length, I would say that you're gonna have a good time with this mouse doing anything from a claw to a relaxed claw to more of an aggressive claw grip, and you probably can do a fingertip grip. If your hands are bigger than 20 centimeters, you'll probably be leaning more towards the aggressive claw and fingertip grips with this mouse, because if you really did do a relaxed claw or a palm grip, your fingers will probably stick over the edge. And if your hands are much smaller, you could palm grip this mouse, but there are far better options than this to palm grip, like the Lamzu Thorn or the upcoming X-Lite V3 Mini. However, if your hands are below 18 centimeters long and this mouse is just a little too big for you to claw grip comfortably, definitely should consider getting the small size variant of this instead. This is the medium size variant, which is the bigger of the two. As a result though, this mouse ends up feeling very similar to the XM2WE shape-wise. And if you're coming from an XM1 or XM2 or a shape that's very similar to those, you'll end up getting comfortable with this pretty quick because it has the same ethos of low front click position and a rearwards tall hump, which is great. It's also 54 grams, which is far lighter than basically any mouse with a similar shape, and it's super well built despite it being 54 grams. The coating and finish of the surface is also far improved from the original X2. It's not as grippy as the grippiest of coatings out there, like on the new Endgame Gear OP1WE, review coming soon, so subscribe with that. But it definitely is a significant improvement, whereas the original X2 you definitely needed to use grip tape, this you can get away without. However, I still think Pulsar should include some super grip tape in the box. They don't have to include all that much. They don't even have to include like custom cut ones. They just have to include maybe a strip of 4 little squares in the box as a free sample to get people hooked on the super grips. Because I think the super grips are really the best grip tape on the market right now. And once you try it, you don't really enjoy using any others after that. The thumb buttons are also equally well built, very crisp with no pre-travel and a little bit of post-travel, as are the clicks. They definitely have zero pre-travel and very minimal sideways movement, which is excellent from Pulsar's side, but there is some post-travel. I have to give props to Pulsar here for the scroll wheel. This uses their own blue encoder, and it's absolutely one of the best scroll wheels I've felt on a mouse in recent times. It's snappy, it's very easy to get used to, you can flick it, and you can do precise scrolls with it very easily, no problems. Although I think for some people, it might be considered a little bit light. The internals of this mouse are basically the same as the X2 V2, so nice and upgraded over the original X2. You got a Nordic MCU that supports a 4000 Hz holding rate dongle, which is a optional $20 extra, and it does have a Pixar 3395 sensor with motion sync. Basing it off of other reviewers' tests from like Betsy Tech or House Gaming, the click latency and the motion latency of this, especially at 4000 Hz, is as competitive as everyone else, which is unsurprising. What's more important is the subjective parts of this mouse, and on this mouse, as I've said, it's brilliant. The shape is great, it feels natural in the hand, and that's really where the strength of this mouse lies. It's the way it fills out your palm is not intrusive, it doesn't like jut and press against your palm, but it fills it out and gives it a lot of support at the same time. And I think it's got to do with how the roundedness of this bump at the back is set up. Like, it's not too sharp, it's not too steep, it's not too tall, it's just kind of wide and bulbous. Also, the battery life of this mouse is definitely respectable. For 54 grams, you get basically basically a week's worth of use if you're just gaming 2 to 3 hours a day. If you're doing like an all-day gaming session, it's not going to run out on you if you start the day at about 70% and above, but below that, I will be wary and charge during my breaks and whenever I have the opportunity to, just to be safe so that it doesn't die midway through a game. But all the good stuff aside, I did allude to having one problem with this mouse, and frankly, it's the only problem I have with the X2H. The clicks, they are good. Technically and objectively, they perform well and they feel modern, crisp, sharp, and snappy, but they're too stiff for me. And I'm only mentioning this at the end because I think a lot of people do prefer stiff clicks because they don't like misclicking. However, I do find that this has gone a little overboard. I don't know why this is the case because Pulsar claims that the switches in here are the same as what you find on Razer's mice like the Viper V2 Pro. The clicks on here are definitely stiffer than what you get on the Viper V2 Pro. I think it's the way the tensioning has been set up. Maybe it's got to do with the materials. Maybe they just made the clicks really stiff to prevent any sort of free travel. But whatever the reason is, it does result in a rather stiff click on this mouse. Now, out of all the mice I have reviewed, probably in the last 2 years, this is without doubt the stiffest, which isn't saying that it's so stiff it's impossible to press. I would say that if I played non-stop with this for a month, I would get used to it, but it's just something that you have to be aware of coming into this. This is definitely a subjective thing, and I know a lot of people would enjoy these clicks, but I'm just raising it up because it definitely takes a lot of getting used to if you are already very used to very light clicks, which I definitely think is going to be the case for most people with gaming mice, since most gaming mice are using Omrons or Huanos and using mechanical switches, which are really lightweight compared to these optical variants that we're getting introduced to. So then the X2H, should you buy it? Well, there's really little to fault with it, and Pulsar has a very good mouse in their hands. The shape is excellent, and it's close enough to the XM2 or XM1 that if you're coming from those mice, it will be a very natural transition. Not only that, it's just a good claw grip mouse shape that stands on its own. If your hand size and grip style fits this mouse well, you'll end up with a great experience. It's definitely a very competitive, viable, high quality option, and it definitely should be close to the top of your list if you're shopping for a medium-sized claw grip mice that is wireless and high performance. Subscribe.